Charles Bronson, the Hollywood bad boy, left behind more than just a canon of legendary flicks. The film industry looked up to him as a trailblazer. A variety of emotions were felt by his family as a result of the riches he left behind. But why did his good fortune make him so sad instead than happy? It was either the size of his fortune, the way he spent it, or the tales hidden therein. The truth about Bronson's last present to his loved ones will be revealed to those who stick around. Charles Bronson, a Pennsylvania coal miner turned hard-nosed action hero who occasionally popped up as a villain, made his cinematic debut. Died away, best known for his roles in the cult classic Death Wish Vengeance flicks. An 81-year-old man he was. Charles Bronson was more than just a legendary actor. His tremendous presence and gritty charisma made him a household name. Throughout his almost 40-year career, Bronson captivated audiences with his riveting performances and became widely recognized for his tough guy persona. When it comes to iconic tough dudes from the silver screen, Charles Bronson is right up there. A man whose features seemed carved from a quarry, he carried an automatic handgun in his hand at all times. Tributes started flooding in after his death at 81 years old. People remembered him for his masculine acting style, his strangely self-deprecating humor, and the shocking, sometimes disgusting violence he portrayed in his films. At Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles when Bronson passed away, his third wife Kim was there to comfort him. After a long struggle with Alzheimer's disease, his health had suddenly deteriorated during the past few weeks. At the tail end of WWII, Bronson, the son of a coal miner in Pennsylvania, decided to pursue acting as a way to escape his depressing working-class background. Even before he began his career, he was cast in the roles of criminal, gunslinger, and social outcast. Due to his unattractive appearance, an Italian magazine gave him the moniker Il Brutto, which means the ugly one. It seemed like he would always play supporting roles. The Dirty Dozen, The Great Escape, and The Magnificent Seven make up this trilogy. Regardless, it captured the attention of viewers, especially in Europe. Sergio Leone cast him in the role that would define his career in Once Upon a Time in the West, but it all started in 1968 when Alain Delon invited him to join the French production of Adieu Lami. Bronson exemplified the strong, silent type to the point that it appeared like hours would pass without him saying a word. Someone once made fun of him in an episode of The Simpsons. The town in question was called Bronson, Missouri, and its inhabitants stood ominously by the doorways, breaking their silence only to say, "I'm sorry." Despite his limited range of motion, Michael Winner praised him as a very gifted performer. A more level-headed assessment was once given by Bronson. "A future role that allows me to prop my elbow up against a mantelpiece and sip a glass is something I aspire to have." It was not an easy road for Bronson's career, unlike those of other Hollywood stars. He returned to Hollywood at the age of 50, this time a star in his own right. In an interview from 1971, he speculated about the reasons behind the lengthy voyage. "Perhaps casting directors see my ideals, think I'm too manly, or just have their own biases when they cast. I could not seem like the perfect person to anyone. Nothing in his formative years hinted at the stardom that would come to define him. His Lithuanian immigrant parents were coal miners, and he was the 12th of 15 children born to them. His name was Bunchinsky Charles. Charles learned to survive in the tough neighborhood of Scooptown. You had already lost all you owned before you even stepped foot in this neighborhood. The Bunchinsky children inherited their clothing from their elder siblings and lived in a little cottage with them. Charles, who was only 6 years old, was humiliated to wear his sister's clothes to school. Charles' father died when he was 10 years old, and he went into the mines with his brothers when he was 16. Each ton of coal he worked was worth $1, and he eagerly took on riskier tasks for the extra pay. His deeds led to his arrest for robbery and violence, which landed him in jail, just like other toughs in Scooptown. With the exception of WWII, he might have continued working in the mines for the rest of his life. After being drafted in 1943, he reportedly served in the Pacific Zone as a tail gunner on a B-29 while in the United States Army Air Corps. He vowed on his honor to leave the squalor of Scooptown behind once he had experienced the wider world. He insisted that acting was not his calling because he yearned to make use of his creative talents. He was impressed by the enormous wealth that movie stars could amass. Joining the Philadelphia Players Theater Ensemble, He did more than just paint scenery, he also played minor roles. While he was a student at the Pasadena Playhouse School, Bronson worked on his pronunciation. He supported himself by selling holiday cards and presents on the street corners. Joining Gary Cooper in the 1951 military comedy You're in the Navy Now, he played the part of a gob. Scouts from the studio saw him perform at the Playhouse and immediately cast him. The 8-day shooting of the exploitation film Machine Gun Kelly in 1958 marked Bronson's acting debut. Among the films that helped propel him to stardom were The Magnificent Seven, The Great Escape, The Battle of the Bulge, The Sandpiper, and The Dirty Dozen, all of which featured his superb acting. But his rough-hewn features and tough attitude did not fit the Hollywood mold of starring men, so he never really became famous. Even more divisive than his other films was 1974's Death Wish. When a group of juvenile criminals abduct and sexually assault his daughter and wife, his world is flipped on its head. Affluent liberal architect Bronson has his world turned upside down. Audiences who were sick of seeing criminals cheered throughout his executions, and he swore a solemn vow to clean the city of them. Even though the character's vigilantism was heavily criticized, Death Wish still managed to become one of the year's most profitable films. The debate intensified after Bernard Goetz shot and killed several young individuals in the New York City subway whom he felt threatened him. Bronson defended the 3 extra Death Wish films he had made in 1987. For victims of crime who have waited helplessly for the government to intervene, I believe they provide a kind of closure. Having said that, I don't think anyone ever tries to copy that. Bronson could maintain the same level of reservedness in interviews as he did on screen. He kept in touch with the Hollywood scene, even though he was away from it. In reality, I am completely alone, even though I like to think I have a lot of friends. Throughout his youth, Bronson's unconventional and risk-taking family dynamic mirrored his own unique character. It was jam-packed with events that were just as interesting and unconventional as the man. Harriet Tendler was the object of Charles Bronson's affections while he was just starting out in his career. Plays Players was an amateur theater group in which both men were active members. When Bronson first joined the group, he was more concerned with room decor and landscape painting. Jewish Harriet was from an affluent dairy farming family, and Bronson was a successful businessman. Charlie Bukinski, who was born into a Catholic family, worked as a coal miner. However, he became closer to Tendler and felt an increasing draw toward acting as time passed. When they went on their first date, Bronson had only 4 cents on him. Even though Tendler's father was hesitant in the years leading up to the wedding, the happy couple finally tied the knot 2 years later. They were married in 1949 and moved to California not long after to live out their dreams as a married couple. Bronson struggled to bring enough possessions with him and his family on their move because Tendler owned items in 4.5 of the 5 suitcases they used. While in California, Bronson worked very hard to improve his paintings. He was married to Tendler for 15 years before they divorced in 1965. Suzanne and Tony were born into the world as a consequence of their parents' decision to divorce. During the height of his career, Bronson tied the knot for a second time. His affair with Jill Ireland began when she was married to David McCallum. He was just starting out. She was about to become his wife at this point. Brown and Ireland married the knot in 1968 after a long engagement. David McCallum, a star of NCIS, ended his marriage to Ireland. He had to overcome some difficult times. However, it wasn't until over 50 years later in 2016 that he opened up about how the divorce affected him. Even though his ex-wife had left him for another man, McCallum showed that he was in a much better position and had no ill will against Bronson. The fact that Bronson met the renowned actor on Great Escape is what brought him to Ireland. Rumor had it that Bronson threatened to steal McCallum's wife while filming the picture, but this was only speculation for a long time. When asked directly about it, McCallum said categorically that nothing had happened to suggest otherwise. He made a joke about Bronson and how McCallum admitted that it was a difficult period, even if he was amicable about his ex-wife's friendship with Bronson. It was disclosed to the audience that he and Ireland were the parents of 3 children. Of the 3 children adopted by the couple, Jason was the firstborn. Ireland was granted custody of the children after their marriage was dissolved, which added to the challenges that McCallum faced. Just like McCallum and Bronson, Jill Ireland was an aspiring actress who wanted to make it big in her industry. Nonetheless, romantic involvement was always an option. The union of Bronson and Ireland brought their children together, forming a blended family. Both of their first marriages produced multiple offspring, he with 2 and she with 3. The girl they had as a couple was named Zuleika. They also took in a second daughter through adoption. The late casting director Hilary Holden's daughter, Katrina, who became their adopted daughter, had died of a sudden heart attack. Though Bronson seemed to already have a family and couldn't afford to adopt Katrina, he went ahead and did it anyhow. Ireland was in 15 films with Bronson, and she was known for playing the major part. They would often travel to film sites with the kids and set up house wherever the action was. We did this so that our family could be close. They also made regular trips to a historic house in Vermont. It was in that location that Ireland trained their daughter Zuleika to be a horse show competitor by raising horses. They also used to go to Snowmass, Colorado, USA for their winter vacations. Jill Ireland passed away in May of 1990 at their Malibu home after a valiant fight with breast cancer. The illness was something she had been fighting for a long time. She first received the diagnosis in 1986, but the wrath didn't go away until 1989. At the age of 54, Carrie went away. Bronson wed for the third time to Kim Weeks, a former actress who was involved in the creation of Jill Ireland's audiobooks while working for Dove Audio. The ceremony was held in the winter of 1998. After getting married 5 years ago, Bronson and Weeks remained married till his death. The ups and downs, loves and losses, and hard-won successes and failures of Bronson's life were like a riveting film. There were several difficulties that he had to overcome on his journey, but you can't help but wonder about the things he left behind for his loved ones. Charles Bronson, an American actor, was one of the highest paid performers of all time after a career that lasted over 4 decades. The majority of Charles Bronson's fortune was acquired through his performing career. Numerous historical films featured him. Critics were unanimous in their appreciation. He has also achieved considerable financial success with his appearances on television programs. He was widely believed to have been the highest paid man in the world at the height of his career. He made $1 million from a number of films, including Death Wish, Chino, and The Stone Killer. $1 million was the ultimate payment the macho actor received for his role in the 1976 picture Saint. After earning $2 million with the 1983 picture 10 to Midnight, Bronson's worth continued to rise. He saw a doubling of his worth in this year.